I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I do like to do collectible reviews on this channel, as you've noticed from the last couple videos I posted this month. But there are some things that I've gotten my hands on, and either I just never got around to writing a full review, or I just tried writing a review and realized I didn't actually have enough material to justify a full-length video. So this time around I'm going to do sort of a rapid-fire review thing. I'm just going to go through a handful of MonsterVerse collectibles that I've been accruing for a little while now and let you know my thoughts on them because, like I said, can't really stretch these out to a full-length video, but I still want to talk about them, so let us begin. Most of what we're looking at in this video will be coming from Playmates, but I'm going to start with Funko. Funko Pops are one of the weirdest things to gain popularity in the past few years. They're kind of like this generation's version of Trolls from the 90s. You remember those things? Those weird little naked humanoids with punk rock hairstyles and fake gemstones in their bellies that people just stood on their desks like it was normal? Weird stuff came out of the 90s, but Funko Pops have taken their place. And these guys are actually now all being sold in one set. Books A Million has an entire section devoted to selling these things, and you can actually find a set that has Godzilla, Kong, and Mechagodzilla all together. Now, Kong is the most normal of them, normal by Funko Pop standards, because he's the most humanoid and therefore he's easier to do in the typical style of giant head, tiny body. And it does look like Kong all the way around, just like he does in the movie. I mean, obviously highly stylized, but you can tell he's got more of a beard, he's got the axe, and he even has just a little bit of articulation. You can turn his head that much. When I said a little bit of articulation, I meant a little bit of articulation. It does kind of make a difference in how he looks, like with his head turned this way, and if you angle him like that, he looks like he's ready for battle, but when he's neutral, it's just neutral. So, I mean, it's a little thing, but it's something, I guess. And otherwise, you know, he looks fine. He looks like he does in the movie, but, you know, it's Kong. You can recognize him like that. Godzilla and Mechagodzilla, on the other hand, they had to go a bit atypical because they've got so many odds and ends. Mechagodzilla in particular actually looks closer to his movie version than any other Funko Pop I've seen. I guess his design is just so complex that it's a little bit difficult to properly simplify like a Funko Pop is supposed to do. But again, all the way around, they look like their characters. Interestingly, since Godzilla in the MonsterVerse has a smaller than usual head, his head-to-body ratio actually looks kind of normally proportioned, whereas Mechagodzilla, being a bit more slender in form of body, he actually looks like he was designed by a caricature artist. But there's actually an interesting way in which these two are designed. Their poses are actually meant to kind of mirror each other, you might notice. They have opposing feet forward, their tails kind of curve in the same direction, but it's like you put them opposite each other, you can sort of see they try to at least somehow capture the idea of Mechagodzilla being the dark reflection of Godzilla. And Godzilla, at least in this form, also comes with a heat ray. It's translucent blue, and there is a little slot in the mouth that it can fit into. It doesn't go in exactly. If you try to put it in all the way, it won't stay flat. But, you know, when they're just standing there, it stays in place. No one's going to really tell if it's properly inserted or not. So are these guys worth getting as the whole set? Well, if you really like Funko Pop figures, then you probably already have them anyway. If you're not that big into Funko, but you do like the Monsterverse, I don't know. Funko is a very particular style. You really have to like the way a Funko Pop figure looks in order to justify these things, because they are display pieces. If you don't like the way they look, why would you want to display them in your house, even if they do represent something you like? So, as for these guys, like I said, if you like Funko Pops, you're probably gonna like these. Otherwise, I mean, if you don't like the style, just don't bother with them. Moving on to the Playmates figures, I'm going to start with what is called Supercharged Godzilla. Yes, Supercharged Godzilla is a name that comes from the Trendmasters toy line way back in the 90s. Referencing the 90s a lot in this episode. Now, I don't know if that was an intentional reference or what in particular makes this Godzilla supercharged, but I mean, that's what they called it, so that's what I'm calling it. Now, you may notice that this is the first Godzilla in the line that is a completely new sculpt. There have been several Godzilla variations released, and we're going to be looking at one in a little bit, but they've all just been color variations. This guy, I think the torso might be the same, like this actual body portion between here and here, because it's got the same battle damage, and I don't really see anything that would necessarily scream different about it. But everything else, tail, legs, arms, head, all new. And this was kind of a big deal because this was the first really new look for Godzilla that they had. And overall, it's an interesting design. In fact, it's kind of reminiscent of the pose they did for the Battle Roar Godzilla, you can see here. Obviously, it's not the same, but it's a similar posture where he's angled upward with his head pointed that way. But it actually does something that I kind of wish the Battle Roar Godzilla did. You may remember in that review, I said that I wished you could stand this Godzilla like he was leaning forward, but his legs won't go that far in order to do that. Plus, I'm not entirely sure he would balance properly if you did it anyway. But with this Godzilla, you actually can do that. You see? And he actually will stand. He'll hold that pose. So that's a bonus. He also comes with this weird little battle-damaged jet as an accessory that fits into his left hand. It's all mangled and uneven. It looks like a mess, but I think that's really the point. He's got the usual points of articulation, and if you want to ask me if it's worth it, I will say there is one major flaw: his face. Like, it still looks like Godzilla, but it looks kind of mushed, I guess would be the word. Like, I don't know what happened, but it's like the angle that it's at makes it look not quite right. Even though I think it's actually a little bit bigger than on the other figures, it's not the prettiest figure. But at the same time, if you're like into photography with your figures or something, it does allow for another option. So, I mean, Godzilla vs. Kong figures can be pretty hard to find anyway, but if you do find this guy, it's not bad. It's better than the Battle Roar figure, I'll tell you that. But, well, it at least provides more options. I will say that much for it. And now we go back to the usual color variations. These are the Hong Kong Battle Godzilla and Kong. Not to be confused with the Hong Kong Battle Godzilla and Kong figures that come with the recent diorama set, which have a completely different color scheme, and these guys would not actually look good in that set. These guys are meant to reflect how they look at night, during the night battle, with the neon blues and purples and reds and everything reflecting off of them. And in terms of articulation, they are exactly like the other Godzilla and Kong figures. But do the colors justify getting them for your collection? Well, the Godzilla figure, as you can see, he's actually translucent. In fact, he's completely translucent. I know it looks like this part of him is all solid colored, but I have a flashlight with me right here. Check it out. It's a little hard to tell, but the light can actually shine through that portion. And when he is backlit properly, it actually does make for a really cool effect. This actually kind of reminds me of something that Bandai occasionally does with their figures. There's, you may have sometimes logged on to a Godzilla site that catalogs all these different collectibles and seen something called a theater exclusive figure. That's like brightly colored, translucent, maybe with some glitter thrown into the mix. It's otherwise a normal vinyl figure, but it looks all kinds of crazy like that. And the idea is that they're sold exclusively at the theater. If you go to see a Godzilla movie in the theater, they'll have these there, and that's the only place you can get them. It feels like this figure is kind of in that spirit. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of going in that direction because it's translucent, because it's got those colors, and they're very rich colors too. Even the heat ray that comes with it is sort of a richer blue than the heat ray for the other Godzilla figure that has one. So this is actually a really cool looking rendition of Godzilla. A weird one given that it's kind of see-through, but still really cool. As for Kong, I'm sorry, but I just don't think he looks as good. He just looks like he's painted. He looks like he's got stripes painted down his arms, a little bit on his sides, a little bit on his chin, and that's it. It just looks kind of weird. They didn't even do the whole thing. Like, this whole Godzilla is committed to the whole color scheme. But Kong, they only did portions of him, and only on the front. You turn him around, he's indistinguishable from the regular Kong figures. And even his axe, like the normal axe, they make a distinction of painting the blade with this sort of shimmering blue color. But here, whole thing is solid brown except for a purple stripe that runs part way down the handle. And the purple is so close in tone to the brown that sometimes you can't even really see it. I don't even know if you can really see it in this video. That's how subtle it is. I don't know, maybe this Kong would look interesting under a black light, but it's just not a good look overall. Godzilla, definitely the stronger figure here. If you want a really neat looking figure and you have a good way to backlight him, I think Godzilla in this variation would be worth getting. Kong, not so much. And now we have Battle Roar Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla figures tend to sell out very, very quickly, so I'm honestly kind of surprised I even managed to snag one of these guys. Now, thing about the Battle Roar figures, they are officially, as far as I'm concerned, the worst figures in the line, and I think the rest of the world agrees with me too, because they're the only figures I see consistently in the stores. Every other MonsterVerse figure can be sold out, every other Godzilla figure can be sold out, but I'll always see these two. And really, I don't blame people for not wanting them. Even I, who have been accused of shilling for the MonsterVerse, cannot really recommend these things because they're ugly, they don't really look finished, they're posed in ways that don't really give you much option in terms of the articulation. They're not good. The only thing they have going for them is the fact that they make sound, but even then, that's just a simple gimmick. Now with Mechagodzilla, objectively speaking, he is superior to the other Battle Roar figures because he's not in a pose. I mean, his tail kind of curls, as you can see, but he is otherwise sculpted in a neutral pose. And in fact, it's kind of a familiar pose, isn't it? Well, there's a reason it looks familiar. It's because the body is a scaled down version of the 10-inch figure, and the head is a slightly scaled up version of the 6-inch figure's head. So this is basically just a slightly smaller version of the 10-inch Mechagodzilla. And with similar points of articulation. You can move his arms up and down, you can move his legs, his tail can sort of move around, and that's really it. I mean, look, he even has screw holes all the way down the left side, just like the 10-inch figure does. So, it's weird though, because his elbows feel like they have a little bit of give to them. You see how I'm able to just sort of wobble this one? But they can't actually move. I keep seeing this happen with Mechagodzilla figures where it looks like there should be more articulation on them than there actually is. And of course, you can only move the arms up and down. It's not like on the 6-inch figure where there's like a ball joint that allows you to move the arms out and make him even more expressive. But of course, this is a battle roar figure. That means it has sound. And the sound is activated by pushing this, whatever it is, shoulder, hip, turret thing. The other one, it's solid on there, but this one's loose because it's a button. And of course, it opens the mouth when it does it, and let's give it a listen. Well, there's one variation. I think there are two more. And one more for the road. So it doesn't sound bad, but does that mean the figure is actually worth getting? Well, like I said, Mechagodzilla figures, very hard to find. They always have been. If you really like this version of Mechagodzilla, like the actual design, the characterization and everything, and you haven't gotten one of the other figures, and this is one that you happen to see, it might be worth it, I guess. But if you already have a 6-inch or 10-inch, I don't know. It's probably not worth getting because I think the other ones are actually kind of superior to it, even though it basically is the 10-inch figure. But the 10-inch figure actually has some size to it. And, well, like I said, it is the best of the Battle Roar figures, but that's about all I can really say for it. And, I mean, I don't know. It is Mechagodzilla. It's not bad. I guess it's just kind of average, if you ask me. Last but certainly not least, we have these mini figures. Now, these were actually among some of the first Godzilla vs. Kong collectible figure toy things that Playmates released images of way, way back. But they're only just getting released here in America. I think they might have been briefly available in Asia, but they've only just been released stateside, going for roughly $10 at Target, and they consist of Godzilla, Kong, a Skullcrawler, a Warbat, formerly called Nozuki, and a Hellhawk. Now, in terms of size, when they say mini, they aren't kidding. I mean, I've gotten some mini figures before from other franchises. Here are like the Jurassic World ones. One of the smallest ones is the Dilophosaurus. One of the biggest ones is the Mosasaurus. You can see that they are small even compared to these guys. And in terms of detail, you might think, well, they're minis. They can't possibly have that much detail, but if we put them alongside these Godzilla minis that have graced the backdrop of my videos for quite a while, we can see that they're not only shorter, but these Bandai USA minis are far more detailed. But then again, it is Bandai. They put a lot of detail into their work. Anyway, though, Bandai and Playmates, they're different companies with different priorities. Are these just good on their own? Well, if we look at Godzilla, and people thought the 6-inch figures had tiny heads, right? I mean, it's still recognizable as Godzilla, of course, but he is so small. His proportions are all over the place. Kong looks a little bit better. Actually, he's more properly scaled in terms of height, I think. But, again, details are kind of light on these two. The Skullcrawler is sculpted in a pretty interesting pose, this weird crawling shape, and as far as color goes, It's got the red down the back like the 6-inch version, but it's also got these bright green stripes, which almost makes the thing look poisonous, really. It's pretty neat, but, you know, again, very simple. He just stands there. The Warbat and the Hellhawk are the only figures in the line, or in this particular collection, that have stands. But that's because of how they're sculpted. Like, you may notice the Warbat is lunging forward, and he's very top-heavy, so he's going to need that stand. He can technically come off of it. He's held on by this little hook. But if you take him off the stand, he's not going to remain upright. As for the Hellhawk, he can come off the stand. He actually can stand on his own. But for the guaranteed stability, he stays on there. And obviously not proportioned to the others at all. The Hellhawks are actually very small in the movie. He might be properly proportioned to the 6-inch figures. I can't say that for certain. I don't know what the official height of these things is off the top of my head. But overall, I guess these two don't look too bad. Again, they're light on details. I'm knocking them over as I'm doing this. Light on details, light on paint, but overall, I mean, this is a cool pose. Looks like the striking cobra sort of thing. But I know the one you really are interested in. You guys want to know about Behemoth. Behemoth is like the fan favorite that debuted in King of the Monsters because he was so different looking from all the other Titans. This giant combination of like a ground sloth, a woolly mammoth, and a gorilla. He's got these massive tusks. A lot of people, even though he only had a couple seconds of screen time, a lot of people gravitated towards him because of his design. And this is, technically speaking, the first official figure made of him. Not the only figure, but due to when this particular collection was announced, he is the first official figure. And in terms of overall detail, again, not bad. He's just covered in fur, so it's not like there are all sorts of different scale textures they have to go with. There is this random dot of paint on his head that was probably just a mistake. But, I mean, he looks cool. I agree that Behemoth has a cool design and all. But does that mean the whole set is worth getting just for him? I mean, like I said, there are other Behemoth figures out there, but like, some of them are highly detailed statues that cost hundreds of dollars. Some of them are semi-bootleg, not technically official fan-made figures that, based on some of the videos I've seen, have a few design issues. This guy, of course, is really small, but also he's affordable. I mean, the whole set is $10. You do still get all these other guys. A part of me wonders, though, will they make a proper 6-inch version of him? I do wonder if maybe making a 6-inch version of Behemoth depends on how well the mini set sells. I have no idea. I have seen companies do that before, but if this is the only rendition we ever get, I actually do think he looks the best of the whole bunch, really. But again, I don't know if it's really worth getting the whole set if this is the only one you want. The set isn't bad, I guess. It's not an awful set. Godzilla's proportions are off, yes. But, I don't know. They might look nice in a display, depending. But of course, I know Behemoth is the one you really care about. Behemoth does look cool, so I don't know. All I can say is that this set is what it is. It's not spectacular. Like I said, I think the Bandai USA figures actually did the whole concept of minis much better. But then again, those are also no longer being sold. So, they're okay, I guess. It's only a $10 set. Whatever. So yeah, that's my rapid fire review that still took a really long time of each of these different Godzilla collectible things, and That's all I have to say for now. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books: Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.